Game over.
Hello and welcome. This is Raiden back again, and I am going to be discussing Scream 5. Now, of course, just 3 days ago, it was officially announced that Neve Campbell is in fact returning to her iconic character, Sidney Prescott, for Scream 5. Now, of course, this is coming after David Arquette and Courtney Cox are reprising their roles as Gale Weathers and Dewey. I mean, it's a great thing. I mean, as fans of the franchise, it is always great to see reoccurring actors and characters coming back. Now, that can always be for better or worse. It's always depending on the story that they're telling, the time that they're telling it. I mean, of course, Halloween coming back the way that it has, having Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode and doing this whole new trilogy, and we'll all see where they go with that. And just the fascinating thing about it is that I don't think any other franchise, any other major horror franchise, has been really this consistent as far as its reoccurring characters. I mean, you have this original trio going from 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5. I mean, decades after the original film. I mean, we've had reoccurring actors in franchises, of course, like I just said, Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, but that's always been a start, stop deal where, they leave the series, they get killed off, then they come back again, and, wash, rinse, repeat type of thing. But where it's actually the same continuous timeline going on with Scream, and this is a real unique situation. Now, of course, it's Scream 5, and it's meant to be a reboot, not, of course, I mean, that's kind of the thing nowadays where nothing is really a remake per se anymore, or just a sequel, it's just a reboot, where it's in kind of meant to revitalize the franchise. It's a sequel, but kind of meant to be its own standalone thing, but at the same time doing this and that, or inserting itself midway into a franchise and be like, oh, those don't exist, we're doing this now. Yeah, so, I mean, that's the funny thing about it, but I think what's great about Scream 5 is that we know that they're all the people that are involved are putting their best foot forward. They seem like no one's doing this just for the sake of doing it. They're doing it because they want to, and because they know that there's room for more. But what is that more? What can we do to make this fresh again? What can we do to make this exciting? Because as I always say, we are in the middle of a horror resurgence where all of the classic villains, the classic slashers are coming back in their prime, so to speak. Halloween, Friday the 13th, eventually, because we know once that lawsuit's over that a movie's going to be fast-tracked by someone. It came back strong. Child's Play had its remake, but at the same time, you got the original timeline with that going on still, with the series and all of that. I mean, so it's a pretty good time to be a horror fan. I mean, next year we are stacked as far as content. Like I said, with the Child's Play series, we got even Spiral coming out that was pushed back. It was supposed to come out back in May, but we got that next year too. So I mean, there's a lot of interesting things happening right now. But yeah, back to what I was saying about them putting their best foot forward. We see that with the directors that they have, with them wanting to truly honor Wes Craven's previous work. Kevin Williamson is back on, but he's executive producer as opposed to writing. I mean, he may have some writing input, probably more than likely, but I mean, so it's good to see that because especially when you have an icon like Wes Craven, who really brought life to this franchise, him and Kevin Williamson. Let's not leave him out. He had I feel just as much to do with it as Wes Craven himself. Yeah. So where do you go with that? How do you honor him and not try to, take away from what he gave us before. And it seems like they're doing that. I mean, we're hearing the directors, we're hearing them talk about how they really care, how they really want to deliver something that's fresh and new. And with this one, it's going to be, it really is going to be interesting because, of course, knowing what Scream is, knowing it's a very meta horror film, it came at a time where the slasher genre, the 80s, it was over with. I mean, there was really nowhere else left to go, and Scream revitalized that, thanks to, again, a talent like Wes Craven and a talent like Kevin Williamson. Because you look at just a couple years prior with New Nightmare. Wes Craven himself revitalized the franchise. It was a spark. It was very much the precursor to Scream, and a lot of people at the time didn't really appreciate it. In a sense, that was kind of ahead of its time. It wasn't until a couple years later where Scream came out where you could actually see the future of the genre and see where we can go with this, where we can actually not take it as seriously, where we can be self-aware, where we can still be scary but still be fun and be refreshing and all of that. The Scream franchise, I feel like, nowadays it gets harder. It really does get harder to find that clever outlet, to really find that spark to even make something like Scream, as revolutionary as it was, to keep that fresh and new. But I do believe that they are going to have something special with this one. We don't know what yet, but make it not completely like the others, but at least do something fascinating to shock us. I would hope so. I mean, an interesting idea would be, and I actually did have this idea probably in my head a year or so ago, maybe even longer than that, but I did think it was, and I think others have said it recently as well. But an idea I did have was, if you did do a New Nightmare with Scream, if you really wanted to take that extra jump and not necessarily go in and try to do what Wes Craven did, at least with this franchise in of itself, but take that extra jump and then pull a New Nightmare where it is the actors playing themselves or versions of themselves, and have it to where it is just a crazed stalker fan kind of doing the Ghostface thing, and now therefore it's meta on top of meta, and you just have yourself a whole new just mind explosion of a film there, where you can really play on that sort of thing, and that would be a fascinating concept. But from what we can tell so far, it doesn't seem like it is going to be that by any stretch. But I feel like if there was going to be that extra step to take, then that would probably be it. Maybe that would be the final film. That could be a Scream 6. We don't know. But everything, that we see so far with Scream 5, will the masses enjoy it? I would assume that they would. Again, because I know a lot of people out there who aren't horror fans like a lot of us are. They just see it as just, that's just another thing, just doing the same thing over and over again. And, well, yeah, it's, it's horror. It's not to say that horror itself doesn't get repetitive in a sense, but people watch these films for a reason. And that's why you always see constantly in these franchises, in their longevity, they always try to add more and try to add this, try to add that, bring a character back, remake it, go back, start a new timeline. But horror in and of itself it's a tricky thing. But at the end of the day, the genre is what it is for a reason, and I love the genre. I didn't used to love it as much as I do now. It wasn't up until about 10 or so years ago where I became more of a full-fledged horror fan, and from what I've gotten out of it since then have been some of the most fun and exciting things I've ever gotten out of any of these genres or franchises. It's just something about it, something about the simplicity in their nature, depending on where they start. You always hear how just starting with these low budget horror films, like whether it be a Nightmare on Elm Street, a Friday the 13th, a Halloween, and just hearing the stories behind them, the creativity that sparks them, the working with these low budgets and then utilizing that and creating something, and just where even happy accidents occur, where this one thing wasn't meant to happen, but something on set made it happen just out of the blue, and that became very much an iconic piece to the whole puzzle. And that's one thing that I really love about this genre, and why Scream in and of itself is also very much a staple of the horror genre, knowing what it did. And it is just so much fun. And a lot of people even still say now that Scream isn't that scary. And I would say, like, well, yeah, I mean, I actually agree with that. I don't think the Scream franchise by itself is that scary. I feel like the scariest moment in the entirety of the Scream franchise is the opening scene with Drew Barrymore. That you can still watch now and be like, that can genuinely still send shivers down your spine, just the way that they executed that whole scene. But I don't feel like, at least for me, I don't feel like Scream needs to be scary. I think it's more of a thrill. It's just more of a fun ride where you kind of enjoy the characters, you enjoy the mystery aspect, because there's not a whole lot of really crazy horror elements to it as much as a lot of other things. I feel like the scares themselves are secondary for the most part, next to just the general excitement that the Scream franchise brings. So I don't think Scream really ever needed to be that scary, or ever was in a way kind of meant to be, at least after the first one. I just feel like, especially as time goes on, it's just natural where we become more desensitized. And especially by this point, the 90s, when Scream came out, I mean, you look at it on the surface, it's like, of all the franchises, it is probably the least scariest, but it doesn't need to be the scariest. It's the concepts, it's the characters, it's just the fun, it's the nature of all of that makes Scream something more than just a scare fest per se. But that's just me. Anyway, I figured I'll just end it there. I just kind of wanted to, just mention my thoughts and my general feelings of the franchise and where it's at, as opposed to just throwing the news out there, because I know others, that's their thing. I'm not really looking just to throw news out there. I'll try my best to do it whenever I can, and I'll to help really grow my audience, and to feel like that, because I just want to talk about things that I want to talk about, and I want to just expand on my knowledge and my feelings as to why these franchises, why this type of work inspires me, and why it interests me. And I feel like just I could have just thrown it out there with this video, and I felt like Scream kind of, again, it's one of those things where it has so many different layers to it, to where there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff. And with this news, and of course as more comes out, I hope to deliver more to you, and hopefully just have a lot of fun doing it. And I hope to have more people along for that ride as I begin to try to make this channel grow, and just as I said, have fun. Anyway, I've rambled enough. I thank you so much for watching. If you have, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I would really very much appreciate that. And please check out the rest of our content. I do have more ideas coming and things that I want to try to implement on this channel. And hopefully it all works out. I really do. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. That's my phone. Goodbye.